So I had this customer come in with this pedestal tabletop. It's 5.5 feet in diameter, and he wants it cut down to about 4.5 feet, and we're going to refinish it as well, since the finish on the top side of it is not that great getting old. So we're kind of spruce it up and cut it down to size using this Rockler circle cutting jig. So we're going to remove these side rails all the way around, and then we're going to take off these stretcher rails that the pedestal sits on, and then we're going to get the our DeWalt router mounted up to this Rockler jig. So let's get a screwdriver and we'll start taking these rails off. So now that we get the rails off, we're going to attempt to find the center of this table. So I'll typically just latch the tape measure, if I can, on the other side of the table. And it wants to be picky here. And then you just kind of like swing it back and find out the farthest, longest distance here. So we got 5 feet 5 inches, and looks like 3/16 is the max. Maybe an 1/8. I'd say an 1/8. So we'll kind of lock this there and then draw our mark out where the center is here, and then we'll do it from a couple more angles to find the exact center point. So it looks like our table isn't exactly round. Maybe it was made, I don't know who made it, but it's not exactly round, but that's okay. You can still find the center point So from this angle we have 5 feet 5.5 inches. So it's a little bit off, but nothing major. So we'll mark a halfway point that intersects our mark right there. And then we'll just keep doing that, and that it'll still give us a center point, and then we can use that, and once we use our jig, that'll make it perfectly round at that point. So it'll all work out in the end. Alright, so we got our center point marked. So now we can start getting the router attached up to the jig. So let's get started on that. So the router that I'm using is going to be the I got the DeWalt DW618, the plunge base on here. This jig comes with screws, or you can use the ones that came on your router. I'm just going to use the ones that came with it because I'm missing one for some reason. So we'll just line up the holes and mount the jig to the base with the supplied screws. So we'll just tighten them down, and it lines up perfectly with a set of the holes. And on the jig paperwork, it kind of lists the different brands and which holes they line up with. So as long as you get a fairly name brand, somewhat newer router, it should fit fine. That's why I bought this DeWalt, because most of the stuff out there works with it. You know, the router tables, I got a Craig router table that the base fits up with, so it's pretty universal, I guess, but fits fine for my my Craig or my DeWalt router. So we got the base attached to the jig, so we'll drill our pilot hole for the center, and then we'll get going here. Alright, back to the table project. Next day here. So we got our center point marked, and we're going to drill our kind of pilot hole for the pin for our router jig. So I'm using a 9/64 bit here, and I'm going to put it in about 3/8 of an inch. That's really all as deep as the pin needs to go, and it's not going to go all the way through the tabletop. So drill the hole. Alright, so let's get our router mounted, and we'll pick out a bit to use to make this cut. So I'm going to go with this Freud bit that I just got at Home Depot. It's the 3/8 cutter with a 1/2 inch shank to do this cut. So let's get that mounted up here. Alright, let's get it loaded in the base. Alright, so we got the router mounted up with a bit, and we're going to get ready to cut this. I'm not going to do it all in one pass. We're only going to do about maybe a third at a time, so we're not burning up the bit or burning up the motor or chewing up too much wood. It's going to burn the edge if you try to do it all at once. So we'll do a couple passes here and see how it goes. Alright, that's all cleaned out. Also, I ended up putting a 2x4 underneath the whole tabletop. You can kind of see it sticking out over here. That's so when I finish cutting the whole ring, it doesn't just drop down and potentially ruin the edge. It'll just kind of float there and I'll kind of support it as I go around. So let's drop the bit down a little bit farther and keep going on this cut. Alright, same deal. So we're going to clean that all out and just repeat the process until we get through the tabletop. So just to answer a question here, as far as the sawdust goes, there's a lot of it. The plunge base for the router does have dust extraction on it, which I could definitely use, but between making sure that center point of the jig stays in place and moving the other the router around in the circle, I didn't really want to deal with pulling along the hose for the dust extraction as well. It's just too many things going on at once, and I didn't really want to let the router get away from me and mess up the cut. So I'll deal with the dust. Just keeps things a little safer. So that's what the deal is with that. So let's keep cutting. Alright, so we're about 3/4 of an inch down. I think I'm going to do 2 more passes just to be safe. I could probably go 1, but it's a lot of material. Over a 1/4 inch. So just to be safe, we'll do this pass and then 1 more pass after that. And that should get us through the top. So let's get cutting. Alright, so this is going to be the last pass. We're already about an inch down and I got a little bit to go. So we'll kind of see how this goes. Not really sure what the tabletop ring is going to do as far as stability. But I guess we'll find out. Alright, let's get cut and finish this thing up. Alright, that went well. Nice, pretty clean edge, surprisingly. No breakouts. It's obviously cut all the way around here. Definitely worth putting that 2x4 underneath to support it, because if I didn't, the whole ring would have just dropped out on me probably 3/4 of the way through, and it could have ripped the backside. So you don't want that. So we'll take the jig off, flip the new tabletop over, and we'll put the same profile that was on the old table onto the new one with a new bit. So let's do that. Alright, so we got the tabletop flipped over and we're ready to do the profile. For this I'm going to use another Freud bit. It's the 1/4 inch shank on this one with the 3/8 round over on it. The original profile has it dropped down about 3/32 of an inch. We're going to mimic that on this one as well, but I'm not going to go right to that right away. It's going to hog out too much material and it'll probably chip out. So we're going to go about halfway down, do a pass, and then we'll go to our final depth. So let's get cutting with that. Alright, so that came out pretty well. I'm going to show you the profile here. So it's got like a 3/32 drop and then the 3/8 round. And that's what the other piece had. So it's definitely, that Rockler circle cutting jig definitely made it a really nice perfect circle. And that's what you need, especially when you're doing the 3/8 round. You're going to see it. You know, any imperfection in the circle is going to translate to the round over, because the bearing on this bit here rides along the edge. And if the edge isn't perfectly round, you're going to see it in the profile. So everybody sitting at the table is going to see every little imperfection if there is any, and you don't want that. So this came out really nice. I'm actually surprised. I'm not. I mean, that Rockler has really good stuff. So this came out really nice. And getting new bits, if you're doing something like this, you want a new bit on your router. You know, I don't want to find out, you know, halfway through cutting the circle that the bit's dull, and then it takes a chunk out of it, and then, you know, this is the customer's table, it's not my table, so I don't want to have to buy a new table. So definitely worth starting with new stuff, and the product shows it. So in the next video, we're gonna refinish this. So we're gonna have to strip off the polyurethane or shellac or whatever's on this, and the stain, and then we'll sand it down and refinish it, make it all new. So thanks for watching.